change. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road. I was expecting some titles to play, and they didn't then. But nevertheless, we'll crack on. As long as you can hear us and see us, then that's the main thing. The team news has dropped, and this is how Norwich City line up this afternoon. I make it one change. Kovacevic in goal, Medic, Starling and Cordoba as the back three, Stacey and Diallo as the two wing backs, Topic and Jacob Wright as the midfield two, with Marcondes and Sienats behind Josh Sargent. The subs bench, Grimshaw, Fisher, Schlupp, Krizene, Gibbs, Kenny McLean makes the bench, Oscar Schwartau, Mate Jurasek. Who's he? New signing this week that I've missed today. And Chris Goran as well. So just to run through that again, one change for Norwich City. Marcelino Nunez, of course, with the ankle injury, is out. Jacob Wright steps in. Kenny McLean comes onto the bench, and so too does Mate Jurasek. And we thought that might be the case because as we look to our right, just over to where the south stand corner meets the river end, we can see Jovan Makama going through his paces. So he's not in the matchday squad today. Paddy, given Marcelino Nunez injury, and we'll start probably there and then come on to some interesting inclusions from the bench. Probably felt natural that it was going to be Jacob Wright to step in, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, more interestingly for me, it was that seemed pretty straightforward. But Kenny McLean has had a very Lazarus-like recovery because midweek, when I asked specifically, because I think Sam spoke to him Tuesday, did a player signing or a summer term event, he thought he was ahead of schedule. But Liam thought it might be touch and go for this side of the international break. Well, I suppose he's not on the pitch today, but he might be called upon if Topic or Jacob Wright, heaven forbid, develop a problem. So that's quite an acceleration in Kenny McLean's predicted return. It's good news, obviously, to have that experience in and around the group. And I guess maybe it's needs must because if you take Forson out of the equation, you take Nunez out of the equation, and also now, of course, we know Gabe Forsyth hasn't been really in the equation. It does start to tick back down in terms of centre mid options. You've got Gibbs, I guess, but maybe. Although now you've said that, and I've just seen one of the comments. No, he is on the bench. Fitzgarden, I wondered whether there was a reason why maybe they've had to accept, fast track him a little bit, Kenny McLean. But no, Fitzgarden's there. Jurasek's there, as you said. We've seen Makama doing a bit of a.
And you can't miss him, can you?
No, he's a big lad, but he's over the far side in front of the south stand at the moment, so. He's not in the matchday squad, but he's over there doing a little bit of work. So, it's good news. Kenny McLean is available, but a little bit surprising given the comments from Liam midweek. But other than that, the 11 pretty much picked itself. I think if there was no injuries, no fitness concerns, enough good elements at Fratton Park, topped by the result, of course. But why wouldn't you go and turn to those 10 as it was, plus Jacob Wright again today? But it does underline a bench that contains McLean, Schlupp, even Chris Garden, to be fair, although not so much in a Norwich shirt. There's some depth in there. Schwartau and Jurasek as well. So, it's another positive signal that this squad is, for me, top six material.
Yeah, and that's even before you throw in no Shane Duffy, no Anis Ben Slimani, of course, as those guys continue to be allowed and permitted to explore opportunities elsewhere. So that shows the level of depth that Norwich City had. And how many of these did we do last season, Pad, where we were talking about benches that have been pulled together, and with no disrespect to the academy players and development players, there were a lot of those guys involved. It didn't really feel like they've got a lot to impact the game. And they've got not just depth, but also different options for Liam Manning, depending on how the game is going, and we know how versatile and adaptable he likes to be. The fact you can bring on a Mate Jurasek in a certain game state, or you can bring on Mateus Chris Gordon, that's a good place to be ultimately, that Norwich do have options on the bench.
And they'll need them. The nature of this league, and Liam said it himself, the margins are so fine. And we saw that last week, really. We saw it. We've seen it all three of these games, including the Watford Cup game, that it's one action here or there. It's one, ability to change something up from your bench and give the opposition a slightly different challenge. And Chris Garden would be the one, but obviously now Jurasek's on the bench, which means he's that step closer to getting on the pitch. And who knows, the game might open up in a way that Liam thinks that he can offer something in a little cameo that, if it goes on and alters the game in a positive direction, then that could really be a rocket fueling moment for that man in his Norwich career, because he needs one. Let's be honest. It's too much talk about where is he, why is he not involved, why have they spent so much money on a player who's barely played 90 minutes of Championship football. That narrative needs to shift. The only way it shifts is he gets on the bench, and then more importantly, he gets on the pitch, and we start to see why they committed the money they did for him. So, if you're Liam Manning, and as you say, there's players who either through fitness related or clearly it doesn't look like they're going to be part of it, he's not even needing to put them in the 20. That is a dramatic change from most of last season, but certainly those periods of when they really were trying to pull the bed sheet in all directions. I mean, the Sheffield United game will stick in my memory at Bramall Lane when we saw Mahovo and Elliot Miles. That was really just putting bodies on a bench. We're not having to do that so far this season.
Yeah, we will. We'll come back to Josh Sargent because I see quite a few comments from him. But you're right. A lot of the comments that we have had since Matej Jurasek signed, really, he's become this kind of mystical figure almost, hasn't he? And he's become an idea and a concept, rather, perhaps more than a Championship footballer. 80 minutes he's played, 2 appearances, one off the bench here. I can't remember who that was against now, but started obviously at Hull. I think we both agree he looked quite good that day. And actually, you asked him, Liam Manning, about him at Portsmouth last weekend. I thought it was probably not his best answer, that's maybe the wrong way to phrase it, but it was probably his most positive answer about Jurasek in terms of the role that he can play going forward, the qualities that he has, the attributes that he has. We've not heard enough about him from a footballing sense, and that sort of reaffirmed that actually they were working to this point, to pushing him into the squad. And hopefully now, if he does get on the pitch, but even if he doesn't, he's in a position where he's more durable and able to impact Championship matches, which is the aim. And he was very, he's full of praise about his level of training as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you read between the lines now, and that goes back to when Johannes had to talk about Jurasek, when Jack Wilshere had to talk about him, and now, obviously, Liam Manning is the head coach in charge. But it's what they say, but it's also, maybe the subtext. And I thought in that answer at Portsmouth, what stood out to me was whether it was a message about the player himself or maybe the environment around him, and that includes us in the media and the fan base. But, you've been at a level, and he clearly has been at a level, with Czech international, playing for the best team in that country, playing in European competition, seen maybe as one of the best youth prospects in that country. And you're at that level, and then you make a move, you get these injury, fitness-related issues, you come back into sort of training, and it doesn't come as easy maybe as it did when he was first breaking through as a first-team player at Slavia. And mentally, that's tough, because you know the level you can attain, and the people around you know the level. And for whatever reason, Liam has talked up about it. He spoke more in general terms, but for me, I think he's addressing it as much to Jurasek. You need to put the team first. It's not about you as an individual. You need to train as he's trained clearly in the last period, maybe all through. Maybe that was an issue initially when Liam came in the building. All these are strands that you're trying to pull together to explain why a player they committed $6 million to has played barely 90 minutes of Championship football. It doesn't really make sense. And for that reason, as I said in my previous point, the narrative needs to change. There's no doubt Liam Manning can see something in this player. And as he said at Portsmouth, his time will come. Well, let's hope today is a good sign that he's obviously trained and showed the right attitude in the past week to get himself into the squad. Now, when the opportunity does come on the pitch, grasp it, take it, and then don't look back.
Yeah, and I think the point that maybe has been missed is, I'm sure, without speaking to him, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that at some point, but I'm sure it's been a really tough period for him as well to deal with all of that mystery and speculation and constant questioning whilst he's been trying to adapt to a new country as well. I'm sure all of that has been a challenge for him. So hopefully, there's a story to be written involving him at some stage. It does feel, hopefully, today. Just to bring you the Middlesbrough team, it's also playing a three at the back. I'll try and unpack it for you. It's Brint in goal, Jones, Fry and Ayling as their back three, Britton and Silvera as the right and left wing back respectively. Hackney and Morris will be what looks like a very good midfield pivot with Azaz and Whittaker behind Tommy Conway. So similar shape to Norwich, same shape in fact. A lot of attacking talent in there. So their subbench: Glover, Barley's, Birksall, Knipen, Edmondson, Hansen, McCabe, Borges and Kante, Abdullahi rather than N'Golo, though, for them. And Middlesbrough, of course, come to Carrow Road, not just unbeaten here in four games, but also an unbeaten start to the season, a 3-0 victory over Millwall last weekend, which I think probably, raised eyebrows because of just how solid Millwall were. But as you say, Pad, not even conceded a goal yet. And I think it's been an odd season starts of the season for them because they've won 2 championship games and also been whacked by Doncaster in the League Cup in there. And I certainly got the sense without being inside that bubble, there was a lot of, not worry, but concern maybe about their lack of business. They are now at a stage where they are bringing players in. Nypen, the latest on loan from Manchester City, who's meant to be very, very highly rated. So all of that, sort of taking all of that into account, Pat, this feels like a really good test to sort of understand where Norwich City are against a team who, like Millwall, maybe even like Portsmouth to a lesser extent with them, they're going to be in or want to be in and around that top 6 conversation again.
Well, you mentioned him there. You're not going to Man City and taking an 18-year-old who they paid reportedly $12.5 million for this summer and giving him that environment if your ambitions aren't effectively where Norwich are. That's why I see these 2 clubs very similar in terms of the squads, in terms of maybe even head coaches. There's a lot of, when I watched Rob Edwards' pre-match yesterday, and he could have been listening to Liam Manning, he was talking up he called them the basics and the fundamentals and just that willingness to want to run, and then talked about, how good Burnley were under Scott Parker last season, conceded 15 goals, and, it's not, to incorporate that uglier side of the game, it isn't a slight on what you're trying to do. It's actually a fundamental requirement, and that's what we've had from Liam Manning as well. So, and then ultimately, where these 2 clubs see themselves, which I'm sure is back in the Premier League, and then staying there for a period of time. So, yeah, absolutely no doubt in my mind. Norwich get a result today against the team. I think there's only 3 teams now, I'm right in saying, who 100% record this early.
I think Stoke and Borough.
What does that tell you about the Championship? That in a league of 24 teams, 2 rounds of fixtures, and you've still only got 2 or 3 clubs with 100%, which we know that's what it's all about. Millwall come here, win on the opening day, they get beat 3-0. By all accounts, I think Middlesbrough just had to dig in for a period last week and then ran away with it towards the end, which again shows you the quality they have in attacking areas. That midfield duo you've touched on, there was a comment there I posted. My mind goes back to here last season, that mad game that Kenny McLean last got himself sent off, the 3-3 game, wasn't it? Those 2 in the middle of the park for them were excellent, as good a central midfield duo as I think we saw at Carrow Road last season. The control, the dynamism, out of possession, in possession. Norwich have to get a grip of that today, otherwise this game will get away from them.
Yeah, let me pull in this comment from Northern Canary, who speaks about the links or lack of with Josh Sargent leaving in the side today, captaining the team, as you can see running across the bottom of the screen. And 9 days to go, Pat. It does feel very quiet around him compared to what it was like maybe in the first part of the summer. Obviously, most pointedly with Wolfsburg. It's going to be difficult now, isn't it, for Norwich City, given what we've all seen, given the level that he takes them to as a team and his goal threat, for them to sanction. Well, it'd be difficult for them to sanction anything because of the quality of the player that he's got. But it feels like they might even have to go north of where Wolfsburg got to now. Any team that would want to sign him because of how important he is to Liam Manning's cause. Yeah,
that seems fair because we're just over 7 days away. That accelerates. He goes out the door. Norwich then have very limited amounts of time to go back to market to bring in anybody who, let's be honest, won't be as good as him, but can offset some of what you lose with him in combination with Cernach and Kvistgaard and 1 or 2 of these other attacking players, Jallo maybe. That's an incredibly difficult thing when we all know it's like feeding time with the piranhas the last day or 2 of the transfer window to try and get any business done of a strategic nature when other clubs are panicking and players and agents are panicking. Not an environment Norwich need to find themselves in. So in order for that to come to pass, I think it would have to be north of, as it was told to us, sort of around about a £22 million package. And as I said to Liam Manning, it feels externally quite quiet on Wednesday. He didn't push back on it. He said, yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment. So where's the club who's going to come and put 22 million down for Josh Sargent? I don't see it. Leeds continue to do attacking business. Burnley have done 1 or 2 in that area. I know there's these scenarios that could play out with a Brentford if they lose a player or 2, maybe a Fulham.
Palace, of course, as well now.
So, we certainly, and Liam Manning wouldn't do it. You won't put a line through it and say he is now staying, he's in the building. But until they're presented with something of a material nature, then there's no decision to make. And by dint of him, again, 3 goals in 3 games, captain in the side, there's a player who's very comfortable in this environment, not agitating to do anything like some of his peers this time last summer. So for me, unless a club comes with a serious amount of money in the 20 mil region, then he will remain a Norwich player. But 7-8 days, these things can accelerate in hours. So let's not get too carried away or too overly confident.
Well, on that point, I was just going to flash up Andy's comment. It says, what percentage do you now give for Josh Sargent staying? I think I'm about 70. I think that's probably where I am.
70?
Yeah, I think so now.
I wouldn't be quite as optimistic as that, mate. I think I'll be dialing it down a bit still, just over 50-50 maybe in favour of him staying.
Okay, cool. Let's turn it.
97%.
97%. Yeah, well, yeah, let's hope
That's
so.
optimistic.
And it's an international break, isn't it, after Blackburn next week? So let's hope he's still a Norwich City player come then. Talking about the Norwich team again, Pat, just before we move on to the game, what has struck me particularly, we speak about the depth and all of those things. It's one change, obviously injury in force with Marcelino Nunez and that ankle, but it's the continuity that Liam Manning's been able to strike in the opening 3 games. Really, there's not been wholesale changes. All right, Diallo's come in at left wing back for Schlupp from the opening day. That back 3 has changed the same. The goalkeeper has stayed the same. Clearly, the Championship will get deeper. There will be more injuries and whatnot. Ankle force and another one that they've lost. But there is a degree of continuity in that Norwich team at the moment. That's something that particularly last season they really struggled with at times because of injuries. Look, they may well again come the winter, but so far so good on that front.
Yeah, well, you say that. I mean, obviously Nunez is now a miss. Big miss. If you're watching that game at Portsmouth, I mean, no, Portsmouth had to be aggressive, proactive on the front foot in the second half to chase that game. That combined with no Nunez made that control element they had in the first half with him and Topic. Don't think Jacob Wright necessarily offered that as a like for like. So they're still navigating 1 or 2. Forson had shown enough in pre-season that Liam Manning wanted to start him against Millwall. You could argue, obviously, with Chris Gardner now increasingly up to speed, and if you drop your Rasek and Jallo in Cernach into the mix, that's less of a blow. But for me, the point you're making there is more about defensively, because to have Kovacevic with those 3 in front of him and keep them together, new players, new relationships, that's massive. The longer that they can stay together as a unit, the more that blend grows, the more those defenders feel confidence in Kovacevic, as we saw against Portsmouth. That was a marked step forward for me from what we saw against him here against Millwall in terms of commanding your area and dealing with the physicality, the aggressiveness you're going to get more often than not in the Championship. So yeah, the longer that certainly the base of that formation stays as is, then I think the easier this process that Liam Manning keeps talking about will be in terms of the programming almost, if I could say the word, of what Johannes was trying to do with a core of this group, and now what Liam Manning and his coaching staff are asking. It's very different in and out of possession, but underpinning that, they have to still try and win games of football and pick up results, and they've managed to do that now, two games on the road. But today does feel like a bit of a weather vane for me of where we're at with Liam Manning, where we're at with this Norwich group, and where they can, at this stage of the season, pitch their tent in terms of status, or whether there's a bit more, evolution to come, which there is inevitably, but it's the degree of it and it's the pace of it, how fast they have to accelerate from here. If you hold your own against a team who are unbeaten and haven't conceded a goal, for me, that's a very healthy signal.
Indeed. We will come to the score prediction. I'll just answer this one. Any news on Tony Spirit? I believe he's still rehabbing from an injury. So, not one that we've asked about for a little while. That leads us on to where we are. Malcolm's kicked us off nice and early, thankfully. He's gone for a 2-0 Norwich win with Sargent to get the 2 goals, which certainly would do little to quieten down any noise, but obviously would be brilliant. Got a 2-2 there as well. So a few predictions coming in. How do you see it, Pad? How do you see it going?
I said it on the Q&A, I think it was earlier in the week. Not identical, but I feel there's a few parallels here with the 18-19 Farker season when it was Middlesbrough. I think that was just after the first international break, so just after the mid-September break. 1-0 here, Pookie. First time I think he played down the middle. And we all know how that season unfolded. That's not me saying that they get a result here against Middlesbrough and get ready for the City Hall open-top bus. But I just think it would feel similarly that the ambition here is to and not just the ambition, but justifiably, you can consider this group of players, this club, to be in that top 6 conversation, because if they do achieve that result today, it's against the team who have the same ambition. So it might not pan out like that at all. We might be talking about, well, we knew it was going to be a bit of a rocky road, and Liam Manning has talked about there'll be bad days as well as good at this stage. So it might well be that's the narrative we're digesting when we record the podcast after the game. But if we get that, a narrow Norwich win, which is where I'm going to put my tick in that particular box, then that to me, off the back of the two very tough, hard away games and getting the result and the manner of how they got the result, you come back to Carrow Road, that full start against Middlesbrough, you consign that to history. You inflict the first defeat and first goals against the team in Middlesbrough this season. Then it'll be difficult to keep a lid on it, I think, because that would reaffirm for me that this is a group of players and a head coach who are already at this stage looking like top six material. So 1-0 Norwich.
1-0, yeah. I feel for a multitude of reasons that this is going to be a score draw. I think two teams playing free at the back, often in games where that's the case, you can kind of see teams cancel each other out a little bit and it can become quite strategic and bitty. I could see that being the case. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a 1-1, I think, today. And I think I've predicted draws in all three of the games so far. So that maybe is me sitting on the fence and trying to get a feel.
I think we both said 2-2 at Portsmouth. And if
we weren't far off.
A, that man doesn't save a penalty, and B, even that shot against the bar in stoppage time. Fine margins.
Fine margins. It's a fine margin game. But I hope you're right and I'm wrong on this occasion. And we're talking about a Norwich City win. Pinkin.com, of course, the place to go throughout the afternoon. We'll have all the coverage, all the analysis and reaction to whatever happens here at Carrow Road. Paddy will be speaking to Liam Manning after the game. And we'll have all of that content on the YouTubes and on our website and socials as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's hope Norwich City can make it back-to-back wins in the Championship this afternoon here. Thank you for watching. See you soon.